What I'm about to tell you started in a bridal suite and ended with a question I still think about sometimes. For a long time, I thought that dress was just fabric. Looking back, I think it carried more love than most people ever do. And I didn't understand that until the woman who hated it the most couldn't stop looking at it. "Did you really wear a thrift store wedding dress?" my future mother-in-law, Victoria Mercer, asked with a smile that made everyone else laugh before they realized they shouldn't. I am Amelia Brooks, a 26-year-old elementary school music teacher from Savannah, and I looked down at the dress and smiled back. "I did," I said. His mom tilted her head. "Sweetheart, vintage is lovely. I just didn't realize we were doing poverty-themed elegance." One bridesmaid coughed. Another stared at her phone. My fiancé, Ethan Mercer, quietly said, "Mom," but she waved him off. "I'm teasing." Everyone's so serious. I felt my cheeks getting warm. His cousin, Claire Mercer, laughed awkwardly and then stopped when she saw my face. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Victoria smiled again. "Of course it is. It just has history." And when she said history, her eyes stayed on the dress instead of me. The thing is, she wasn't wrong. That dress did have history. About 11 months earlier, I'd walked into a little thrift store after school because I needed a lamp and ended up meeting our shop owner, Miss Alina Hayes. "Honey, you look sad," my neighborly new friend said before I'd even reached the dishes. I laughed. "Is it that obvious?" She handed me a butterscotch candy and said, "Only to people who have earned gray hair." We started talking every Sunday after that. Sometimes I'd help her organize donations. Sometimes we'd just drink tea and complain about weather reports. One afternoon, she held up the dress and asked, "You ever think about getting married?" I laughed. "Eventually," she smiled. "Good, because I think this dress has been waiting for somebody kind." And honestly, I thought she was joking. I had no idea why her eyes watered when she said it. Over the next year, Miss Alina became the kind of person who checked whether I'd eaten before asking how work was going. My closest friend, Madison Reed, joked once, "Amelia, you've adopted a grandmother." Miss Alina laughed. "Sweetheart, she's the one who adopted me." Every Sunday I'd bring peppermint tea, and she'd sneak extra cookies into my purse like I was still 10 years old. A month after Ethan proposed, I showed her the ring. She held my hand and smiled. "He's a lucky boy." Then she disappeared into the back room and came out carrying the dress in a garment bag. "I want you to have it," she said. I almost cried. "Miss Alina, I can't afford something this beautiful." She laughed. "Good thing I'm not selling it." Then she touched the lace with her fingers and quietly added, "Just promise me one thing, honey. Bring it back after the wedding. There's something I want to show you." I forgot about that promise. The second wedding planning became real. Ethan burned toast every Sunday, his mom called 3 times a day, and somehow everyone had opinions about flowers. "Your mother would have loved peonies," his mom would say, even though she'd never met mine. I made one mistake, and I know it now. I kept telling myself she meant well. One evening, while stuffing invitations, I said, "Maybe she's trying." Ethan smiled. "Mom just wants everything perfect." I wanted to believe him. A week before the wedding, Miss Alina called. "Honey, don't forget our deal," she said. I laughed. "I haven't." She paused. "Good. Some things deserve to come home before they're lost forever." I thought she meant the dress. Looking back, I don't think she was talking about fabric at all. And the morning of my wedding, I learned just how much his mom hated seeing me wear it. By the morning of my wedding, I'd convinced myself I could survive one more smile from his mom. I was wrong. She stood behind me in the bridal suite, watching one of the bridesmaids zip up my dress. Then she smiled into the mirror and said, "Did you know I almost bought you something decent, but Ethan said you were sentimental." The room went quiet. I laughed softly. "I'm happy with this one." His mom fixed an earring and replied, "Sweetheart, happiness and standards aren't always the same thing." Claire looked uncomfortable. "Aunt Victoria, it's pretty." His mom smiled. "Of course it is. I just don't understand why looking poor has become fashionable." My chest tightened. Then she stepped closer, touched the lace, and her smile disappeared for half a second. I'd never seen fear on her face before. "Where exactly did you get this dress?" she asked. And suddenly she looked less amused than shaken. If you've ever had someone judge something they never bothered to understand, stay with me because I almost missed what happened next. I barely had time to answer before Claire followed me into the hallway. "Amelia, wait," she whispered. I turned around. "You okay?" She looked nervous. "No, actually." Then she lowered her voice. "I've known Aunt Victoria my whole life and I've never seen her react like that." I laughed awkwardly. "Maybe she finally hates lace." Claire shook her head. "No, she recognized it." I stared at her. "Recognized what?" Claire swallowed. "The dress." My hands went cold. "How would she recognize a thrift store dress?" Claire glanced back toward the bridal suite. "Because when she touched it, she looked like she saw a ghost." Just then Ethan walked over. "Everything okay?" Claire forced a smile. "Sure," but after he left, she grabbed my hand again. Amelia, promise me something. After the ceremony, take that dress back to Miss Alina immediately. And suddenly I remembered the promise I'd almost forgotten. After the ceremony, I didn't even stop to change. I hugged guests, kissed Ethan, and drove straight to Miss Alina's shop with Claire beside me. Miss Alina smiled the second she saw us. You remembered, I laughed. Barely, she touched the dress gently and smiled. Take it off, honey. I promised I'd show you how to preserve old lace properly. Some things deserve to last another generation. 20 minutes later, she carefully spread the dress across a table and explained how to protect old stitching. Then her fingers paused. That's odd, she murmured. My heart skipped. What? She gently pressed one section of the lining. This part feels thicker. She carefully picked at the old thread and opened a tiny hidden pocket neither of us knew existed. My breath caught when she pulled out a photograph and a folded letter sealed inside yellowed plastic. Miss Alina, I whispered. She immediately shook her head. Honey, I swear I've never seen these. Claire leaned forward and suddenly covered her mouth. Amelia, she whispered. That's Aunt Victoria. I looked at Miss Alina. You knew? She slowly shook her head. Not until today, honey. Claire sat down hard. That's Aunt Victoria. She was 22 when that picture was taken. That was years before she married Uncle Robert and had Ethan. I stared at the photograph again. The smile on the young woman looked nothing like the woman who mocked me in the bridal suite. Then I unfolded the letter. It wasn't from her. It was addressed to Victoria and signed by someone named Daniel Foster. If you ever read this again, I hope you chose love instead of fear, I read softly. Miss Alina closed her eyes. Daniel brought me that dress almost 30 years ago after Victoria left him. He told me he couldn't bear looking at it anymore and asked me to donate it someday when I was ready. My chest tightened. You knew him, she nodded. He was my son. I never knew he'd hidden anything inside. Claire looked like she couldn't breathe. Amelia, she whispered. Aunt Victoria never donated that dress. She lost it when she walked away from Daniel. Suddenly, I understood why she'd looked terrified when she touched the lace. The reception was still going when Claire insisted we go back. Amelia, she deserves to know this exists, she whispered. Honestly, my stomach hurt during the drive. Part of me wanted to go home and cry. But another part couldn't stop thinking about the look on Victoria's face when she touched the lace. His mother was standing alone near the garden when she saw the photograph in my hand. The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? She whispered. I held out the letter. Miss Alina found it hidden inside the dress. Daniel Foster wrote this. She sat down so suddenly that Ethan rushed over. Mom, she looked at the picture and started crying. I'd never seen her cry. I thought he threw it away, she whispered. Ethan looked confused. Who? She laughed through tears. The only man who knew me before I started choosing security over who I really was. Then she looked at me. I hated that dress because it reminded me who I used to be, and I hated that you wore it better than I ever did. For once, her honesty hurt more than her cruelty. A month later, Miss Alina invited us for tea. His mom came too, not because everything was magically fixed, but because life doesn't work that way. She apologized quietly. Amelia, I spent years pretending expensive things made me happy. Then you walked into my son's life wearing the one thing I gave up. I squeezed her hand. I'm not 22 anymore either. Ethan still burns toast every Sunday, and Miss Alina still hides butterscotch candies in my purse. If this story stayed with you, I'd love for you to like this video, subscribe so you never miss one, and leave a comment telling me if you've ever seen someone hide regret behind criticism. I'd really love to hear your story. I learned something simple. People don't always judge what they hate. Sometimes they judge what reminds them of who they used to be. Funny thing is, the thrift store dress everyone laughed at ended up bringing somebody home.